So I'm finally back in London, which is really nice. I forgot to, I was really busy kind of running around and my flight was a little bit delayed and I was unpacking and it was a complete mess yesterday. So I'm actually recording this a day late, which very, very, very rarely am. Still wanted to just make an update for yesterday, which was basically just getting back, kind of putting my feet on the ground here. It feels really nice. I think one of the big reflections, or just, I felt really tired of Lisbon for all kinds of reasons, but a big part of it was just I felt like very constrained. It's not, I'm also not super central in Lisbon, and it feels really nice to be back in a big city. Like for me, I find that that's something really important that I enjoy a lot is being somewhere where it's got like a high pace and things like that. Things are happening. You go outside, there's people but I had some really nice readings in Lisbon. I had some in-person meetings. It was really great. So like that last week was pretty good. Saw some things, just caught up and then obviously left and now being here, like I'm very excited to be back and just, yeah. But one of the main focuses at the minute is how am I going to make the most of this thing? As in, because I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the ground here and I just want to leverage the place that I'm in. So what I mean by that is like actually go out and meet people in person. I think in person, building a business online has loads of benefits, but in-person relationships have benefits too. Like they can, you have a lot more serendipity, just random occasions that you couldn't have thought of that something happens and you meet the right person who just, like things click. And so I want to make the most of London. So I'm thinking about events and things like that. Although I will be going to Italy for a bit. So no events this week just yet, but I'm also settling into a routine and figuring out just basic things like a little bit of food. And I want to gym, and I've been going to London, but I miss swimming a lot. I used to swim competitively, actually. Little fun fact about me for those of you who watch these pretty boring updates, but I used to swim competitively when I lived in Malaysia, and that's something I really miss. And so I'm actually very excited. I haven't swam properly in maybe 4 years, as in like consistently and stuff like that. And so I'm very excited to do that. Yeah, and just kind of get settled back in basically. But yeah, also the price of life though is very that's a lot more expensive. And so I'm also reevaluating budget, making sure basically right now I'm just moving to increase our runway. Like as a company, I had a really interesting discussion with this guy actually about runway, he's from the US. And if you're from the US and if you're from anywhere else, this is just something that you do not think about because it's like a fish doesn't know that it's in water, right? If you're in the US, you have really, really easy access to credit in a way that I would argue now, don't quote me because I can't guarantee, but I would bet most of the world, like probably 99% of the world does not have access to credit like the US does. What I mean by that is in the US, you can register a business and, or even, I mean, I'm not familiar with it. I've never lived there, whatever, but you have access to credit cards with a lot of ease. And I was speaking to this guy, founded some interesting ventures and actually all kinds of weird spaces. Very, very nice guy, really cool. And we were talking about things and he was like, oh yeah, when I started, I basically put a bunch of stuff on a credit card and, I made it work. And so basically he leveraged himself with a bunch of credit card debt and then made that money back and paid it off. And so kudos to him. But that is a possibility that, the rest of the world doesn't have. And it's not something I really even thought about, right? I just kind of this is my, I don't know, you don't feel that something is missing until it's gone, right? And so since I never had that option, I never felt like I was missing out on it. But in that conversation, I really I noticed it a lot more. And so we were talking about runway because one of the goals that I have now is I want to save up a little bit more runway, not because we're making more money than we ever have before, lifetime, but I want to guarantee stability for the team because that also means that we can make longer term plays that don't yield results in 3 or 6 months, but that yield results in 9 or 12 months. And those longer term plays usually are the ones which have asymmetric returns, at least I believe. And so that I want to build up runway so that we're very comfortable making these long-term plays and don't have to be worried about, when's the next deal and when or how are we going to make payroll next month? Because that is a very stressful life to live. And I was asking him how many months of runway do you usually keep in your business? Just out of curiosity, is it 6 months, 12, whatever? And he was like, well, I don't really know, because also, we have credit cards and credit cards can kind of extend that. And it was so interesting because for me, I have a spreadsheet where I track all my bank accounts and I can see exactly how much cash on hand I have. And so not including investments, not including assets I own, not including the stuff that I could technically liquidate, right? So, if I sell this monitor and this laptop, I have more money, sure, but not including any of that. How much cash do I have in the bank? And so without liquidating anything, how long can I survive? Basically that's this spreadsheet just tracks how much cash on hand I have. And and I look at that and then I immediately know how much runway I have because I know my burn rate, I know all these things. And so, I can kind of look at that. But it's interesting because it's not really so much of a consideration for him. Because because I don't have access to credit as easily. For context, my company is incorporated in Singapore, which is already a very, very lucky place that I have access. Like, it's very lucky that I have access to that to begin with. But in Singapore, you, at least, from what I'm aware, I'm no specialist, but you need a minimum salary to take out a credit card under your own name. What I mean by that is like a personal credit card. And once you hit that minimum threshold, generally the credit limits, like, you can push them up. So in Singapore, you do have easy access to credit, like easier than most countries, but not as easy as the US. But you need a certain minimum like income threshold, and you need XYZ months of income, whatever, and you're personally liable for that credit card. As a business, most of the time, from my understanding, you can take out a credit card, but you are personally liable for it unless your business is big enough and doing a couple million. But other than that, if the business is very small, they just basically make you personally liable for the card. And so it's the same as having a personal card. And I don't have a credit card. I haven't taken one out yet for various reasons, but part of it's because like taking out income thus far has not, like, it becomes more expensive to me in terms of taxes. Like, I pay more taxes if I take out income versus if I just leave it and I can expense like the things that I need through the company. But I'm changing that now because I want to have income statements for stuff like credit cards. But it's never really been like a priority on my mind or anything. And for me, I look at that spreadsheet of how much cash on hand do I have, not how much access to capital do I have. My runway, when I think about runway, I think about like, okay, went to shit, everything goes to shit tomorrow, there's no money coming in, like how long can we survive? I just look at how much I have. Whereas in the US and in places where you have access to credit is easy. Also, this changes as you grow, right? Like in almost any country, as you build a bigger business, you have more and more access to credit. And then this is why like credit has all kinds of advantages, especially in terms of tax, because it's kind of besides the point. My point is more like in the context of small businesses. In the context of very small businesses, it is much harder to I suppose like survive when you're a cash flow business, when that's your oxygen, really. It is very different building a business outside of the US without that like same access to credit and something like that. It's really something which I find very interesting. Anyway, so there's some thoughts on that. But yeah, my brain has been a little bit scattered, and so I have to put some time into it. Wait, am I late for a call? No, I'm not. I got 2 minutes. So I got a meeting now with a client, and then I gotta organize my little task list, which is right now a bit of a mess. Man, this Notion to-do list is the best thing ever. Also, Amazon is so much faster in London than other places. This is why you living in a tier 1 city just has a bunch of these benefits that nobody talks about. Like, yeah, it's a hell of a lot more expensive, but it comes with just like those little things that you don't think about that just make life very convenient. Anyway, I'm gonna head into the meeting and hopefully record something a little bit better, more organized later, but that is the update for yesterday, basically. But that's my cue to get onto that meeting.